Buckeye Talk back with our game time decisions. I'm Nathan Baird from cleveland.com along with Stephen Means. These are the main factors that we think will decide this game or that we think these teams should be focusing on as they go into this penultimate game of the regular season. Obviously, Ohio State trying not to look ahead to that Michigan game sitting on the horizon a week from now. Stephen, what is your game time decision?
So we know Marvin Harrison's awesome in every sense of the word. But what you don't want is, ironically enough, we're going to talk about this wide receivers play, the one position where you probably didn't have any worries about coming into the season, even after Jackson Smith and Jacobs' injury. But over the last couple of weeks, it's been the Marvin Harrison show, and there's no sidekicks, let alone co-stars. And that's not the way this is supposed to work. Emeka Buka, the last 2 games, 4 catches for 44 yards and 1 touchdown. Julian Fleming, the last 2 games, 3 catches for 31 yards, no touchdowns, and a lot of drops. Now, some of that is terrible weather against Northwestern. Nobody really got involved. But last week, they really didn't get involved. And really, in the Penn State game, neither one of them did much either. And so this would feel like a game where if the Indiana game was CJ Stroud's get back, get right game, find your groove game, the Maryland game should be the hey, everybody not named Marvin Harrison Jr. in that wide receiver room, you should get right and have some get back here. And the way CJ kind of operates sometimes is he's knowledgeable of that stuff. He's not going to force anything. He's going to throw the ball to who's open. But if this is for a team like Ohio State, who does kind of like try to work out things in the middle of a game when they know they're going to win by 40, this is a chance to do that with these wide receivers. And so I want to see what the targets are for Julian Fleming and Emeka Buka, but more importantly, do they look more like the receivers we saw really the first 6, 7, 8 weeks of the season since that version of Ohio State's receiver corps has been healthy? Because that's going to matter, because if not, a team like Michigan, Jesse Minter's going to notice that. He's going to notice that the only weapon on the passing game is Marvin Harrison and Tate Stover to a lesser extent, and they're going to scheme for that. And you can't have that. So my eye's going to be on Marvin, not Marvin, but Emeka Buka and Julian Fleming to see if they can kind of get their groove back this week.
And obviously, no expectation that Jackson Smith-Njigba plays this week, and we
Yes.
don't know if and when that will happen. But I'm also thinking ahead to the Michigan game through this game, and I'm on the other side of the ball. And all season long, we've been talking to Jim Knowles and these defensive players about what else is coming, because they've all sort of hinted, or Jim Knowles has come right out and said, like, well, we've installed this much, but we've installed the whole defense, but we've really only used this much. We've practiced a lot of things that we haven't put on the field. And I would assume that there are going to be some things that they don't put on the field this week that they haven't put on the field yet that they are saving for Michigan. So that's not the game time decision, because they aren't going to do it this week. There's probably going to be some wrinkles, but I am curious because they've just been, they built throughout the year, maybe it's blitzing more with the safeties. Maybe it's doing some other like small things that some small nuances within this defense. And he specifically mentioned earlier this week the idea of sort of turning Jack Sawyer loose in that jack position and letting him be reckless, letting him just have more ability to sort of freelance while the other 10 guys are doing their responsibilities and reading their keys and filling their gaps and everything. He gets to operate a little bit outside of the structure, which also makes him kind of within the structure. That's what that position is at the end of the day supposed to do. So do we start to see a little bit more of that this week? Last week was a step forward, I thought, for Sawyer. I think he had like a sack and a half against Indiana, and you can see that that's been there all year. It's just a matter of, within all the other responsibilities he has at that position, the way Jim Knowles talked about it, not wanting him to think too much. And does he get to that point where there's like that break happens between something he has to think about a lot and something he's just very facile with and can move around a lot on the field? And do we start to see some hint of that this week? Now, Maryland's offense is very different than what Michigan's going to try to come out and do a week later. So that is hard to match up. But do we just get to see more evidence that Jack Sawyer is getting closer to that point where Jim Knowles is going to unleash him? And could that be a big factor in the Michigan game? Come back to Buckeye Talk right after the game. Well, as soon as we can get it done after the game for the post game podcast, wherever you can find podcasts. But get the text 614-350-3315. It is a 2-week free trial before it's only $3.99 a month. But get it today, get it this morning before the game. That 2-week free trial will take you through the Michigan game. It'll take you on in towards at least the Big Ten championship game if Ohio State happens to be playing in it, because that's where we're texting out a lot of pregame intel, news analysis 7 days a week from Buckeye Talk.